give you some insight, Luke.
Actually, even as you were chatting, because you said the way the athlete is improving, like even McDavid, really, I felt I'm not sure if he introduced linear crossovers to the game.
Yeah.
It is one of his secrets, though, to speed. Like his speed is, it is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard. So Sam Bennett grew up playing with McDavid, and I worked with Sam. Sam, as you know, the infamous shoulder or the infamous pull-ups, couldn't do a pull-up, and everybody was up in arms. Well, his shoulder needed surgery, and so that's the reason why he wasn't able to. So his subsequent surgery and rehab, that was my job. Me and Sam Bennett were on the ice for I don't know how many months. So he told me with McDavid, he was always on rollerblades, like always on rollerblades, or like just stick on this whatever. Like he's around the outside, and he would do everything on rollerblades, sticking around. So I mean, maybe there's something there's something to it, because it's, for me, the linear crossover, like that's habitual on his part, right? Like that's something that he doesn't think about. That's just automatically what he does, right? And so I think that coaching our guys, I showed these guys one video to our prospects, and part of it was like trying to get that into your game, but it has to be habitual, and try to do it, because when you're running a practice, and let's just say you do a skating drill or a shooting drill where you just skate down the length of the ice and shoot, right? Like whatever, just pick the drill. How many times will you see guys linear crossover? Like rarely. They chug along straight, right? So to be able to try to get that way of thinking, get it habitual, and then the hands will come, right, to be able to separate the two. But
one reason I gave that some thought about linear crossovers, how come, and I believe I actually utilized it. I played, and yet I didn't. When I watch McDavid, he'll actually do two linear crossovers in one direction sometimes, and it seems to really give him an extra burst of speed. And so I gave some thought to how I did it, and I thought, if I were to do a linear crossover, I only ever did one, because the second one was going to get me killed. Because here I was crossing over in front of a defenseman, and if he actually decided at that time to stand up, my legs were tangled. I was dead. And so I think when you say habitual, I was habitual in doing it once and not twice. And that's, I think, one thing with McDavid is when he does it twice in one direction, not only does he generate speed, but he generates width in his, like he actually took one lane to another lane, and then he really kicks it into high gear from there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dom.
I think the problem with the video and with being able to slow it down and to be able to do all these things, like we watch it in super slow motion, and then we try to take the layers off and try to emulate, this step or that step. Like if you play that real time, like it's instantaneous, right? Like the move against Riley, like you try to imitate that, and I was on skill coaches calls, and this is the skill and that's the skill, and so, but like ultimately it's him being able to with whatever he's used to being able to do, whether it's constantly crossing over in any such way or form, and then just adapting to his environment. And it happens so quickly that we don't do it justice, the fact that all the work that he's done prior to that. We just think if we just take this specific skill of let's call it linear crossovers, and we just work on linear crossovers, that we're going to be able to have like McDavid at the end, right? Or we can have that skill at the end. So it's, as I say, like there's so many steps to be able to get to that level, but then we'll replicate a drill that just does that sequence. Well, it's not that sequence. It's the sum of all the parts of being able to, habitually being able to generate speed, to be able to find yourself in space, and being able to, move yourself within space with the puck as according to reading the D. Like there's so many other skills that are involved, but we're so reliant at being like, okay, here's the skill. If I cross over, if I get really good at doing this sequence like McDavid, I'm going to be like McDavid, which is just so, you know.
But wouldn't it be the first steps to getting
the first steps for actually doing those skills? I see. I would argue the first steps is more of the awareness of when.
I'd like to intervene on the linear crossover. Then Morris, go back to the original scoring story. The linear crossover, and I'm talking right start hockey, teaching kids and your pros. McDavid accelerates on the linear crossover, and you would accelerate on a forward stride. And the acceleration on a forwards that McDavid has can be taught and learned at a very young age. And the linear crossover, twice each way maybe, deliberately practicing 3 times or 4 times each way, but in a game, twice each way, once each way, you're just making that defenseman off balance. You can't be defended. The speed he can generate. What he's done with the work he's done with plyometric skating work and edge control has led to the development of that skill. There's just no doubt about it. So it's another toolbox that I think isn't a big deal to teach. You don't have to spend a lot of time on. It's sort of like backward stride between drills so you can skate backwards. Just do some linear crossovers up the ice, driving your